Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, August 31st. In our devotion for today, I want to conclude our series of faith practices. We are reading through the book of James and taking out all the different faith practices that the Apostle James writes out and implores us to put into practice into our life. Today's reading comes from James chapter 5, starting at verse 19. My dear brothers and sisters, if someone among you wanders away from the truth and is brought back, you can be sure that whoever brings the sinner back from wandering will save that person from death and bring about the forgiveness of many sins. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Today's faith practice is one of the most common ones. It's one of the ones we talk about all the time in church. It's one of the most necessary ones, but it's also one of the most difficult ones. It's one of the ones most filled with joy and pleasure, but it's also one of the biggest stumbling blocks that we have, and that is forgiveness. Forgiveness in and of itself is a faith practice. We need to practice and to exercise forgiveness at every opportunity that we have, because as we forgive one another, as we forgive ourselves, as we forgive God, we're basically unleashing God's grace on this world whenever we forgive. Forgiveness is hard because so often we want back what was taken from us, our dignity, our honor, our material possession, whatever was stolen or taken away from us, an experience that might have been stolen, that it should have been a wonderful experience, but because of someone else's sin, it turned bad. We want those back. We want people to repay us in kind. We want often to receive something that can never be given back to us. And so forgiveness becomes really hard. Forgiveness becomes hard because often we don't see justice, and we have to forgive trusting that God is going to bring about justice. Forgiveness is hard because we have to put our faith that justice happened 2,000 years ago when Jesus died on the cross, not just for my sins, but for the sins that were committed against me. Forgiveness is hard because it causes us to be more vulnerable. And our knee-jerk human reaction often when we are hurt is to build walls, to close ourselves off, to never let that happen again. But as we forgive others, we allow ourselves to be hurt once again. We become vulnerable. Forgiveness is hard because we just don't want to do it sometimes. Forgiveness is also a process. Forgiveness is something that we sometimes have to do over and over and over again as we go deeper and deeper into levels of forgiveness. It's not something that always happens right away. The pain and the damage that's been done to us causes us to need to do it over and over again. We forgive for the benefit of others, but also for ourselves, so we can be free from the bitterness and anger. But forgiveness is also a faith practice because as we go through the process of forgiveness, we are saying to God, I might not want to do this, but I know I need to do this. And in doing so, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you to make things right. Forgiveness is a faith practice because as we forgive, we are being used by God. We are seeing how God works. We are bringing people back to God, and our faith grows. Whenever we see the power of God's ministry, the power of God's good news working in our lives, it's going to grow our faith in God. And there's probably no bigger way that we see God's grace being displayed in our lives than when we choose to forgive one another or to forgive ourselves. Forgiveness is a faith practice. And because it's a faith practice, actually, it's not something that we should just wait to do until we're forced to do it. It's something we should, build up as a habit. Forgiveness is something that whenever someone does something wrong to us, whenever someone sins against us, if we build up a habit of always forgiving as soon as we can, as quickly as we can, without fault, without blame, without judgment, without guilt, without payback, when we build up forgiveness as a lifestyle, we start to see when other people sin, not as horrible moments where they're hurting us, or not as horrible moments where they're failing, or not as horrible moments when they're tearing down this world, but we see these moments as opportunities to forgive. And we're able to then work with God in helping to restore and bring people back into God's kingdom. It's a powerful ministry. It's a wondrous ministry. It's a joyful ministry. It's a ministry, and it's also something we can be gifted at. And it's a lifestyle that we can build. because forgiveness is indeed a faith practice. Amen. Amen. I don't want to give the impression that because we've encountered this as a faith practice, that means right away you're going to be able to forgive everyone and all of those emotions are going to disappear and then you will no longer be hurt. No, that's not how forgiveness works, but forgiveness does lead us to restoration. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean that you still have to trust them. Trust is a different level of relationship building, but we forgive first, and that then could possibly lead to rebuilding of trust and restoration. But forgiveness is important, and forgiveness is one of the crucial ways that we build our faith in God by making it a lifestyle. Amen. Amen. It is Monday, so on Wednesday we'll be having another devotion, and then Wednesday evening we will have our Wednesday evening prayer meeting. So join us for that. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and look in on those people who are most vulnerable. Amen.